Is there a difference for, black person, white person in business? Have you noticed?
I've never been African American, so I can say for sure.
That's all right. I didn't expect that. That's a good one.
But I will say this. So there's a lot of people I've seen, you hear stories, whatever, but somebody gets out of a nice car and they'll say, well, you assume I'm a rapper because I'm African American, black,
Sure.
whatever, or an athlete or whatever. Well, people said that to you, and so you came up with a clothing line. So some people get angry, some people find a solution.
Yeah.
We're gonna run the play. Let's go. Do you know what it's like to come from nothing at all, but every day you just wanting it all? Do you know what it's like?
All right, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is Justin Owens. Welcome to the Run the Play show. I'm excited because, as you guys know, in the show, we want to teach you different plays when it comes to leadership and business and communication. And I've got the honor to have one of my good friends, also a mentor of mine, my entire life that's really helped me since an early age. He owns a company called ApplicantStarter, lives here in Atlanta, Georgia. Y'all get it from my guest, Brad Park. How you feeling?
Oh, great. Thanks for having me, Justin.
Man, glad to be here, man. This is like
Cool setup.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Put some time and energy and effort into it, but glad you could bless us and be on the stage. And
My pleasure. I appreciate
talk about some plays.
the offer.
Absolutely. So let's jump into it. We kind of alluded to it a little early, but I got to ask you. Obviously, I'm African American. I don't know if you noticed that, and you're on the lighter side. But is there a difference, right? As a Caucasian white person in business, African American, black, however you want to say it, is there a difference for black person, white person in business? Have you noticed?
I've never been African American, so I can say for sure.
That's all right. I didn't expect that. That's a good one.
But I will say this. So there's a lot of people I've seen, you hear stories, whatever, but somebody gets out of a nice car and they'll say, well, you assume I'm a rapper because I'm African American, black,
Sure.
whatever, or an athlete or whatever. Well, people said that to you, and so you came up with a clothing line. So some people get angry, some people find a solution.
Yeah,
I think
that's real.
everybody's got obstacles. Some are more than others.
Yeah.
So what I always tell people, and I told my kids this too, because you got a daughter,
Yeah.
Kids, they say, oh, it's not fair. Well, good you learn that now, because life has never been fair
Yeah.
and will never be fair. So the fact that it isn't fair, you got to see if you can tilt it your way. And it might be harder for you than another person.
Yeah.
Then realize that, suck it up, and get going.
Yeah, no, that's real. Yeah, you're right, because that's definitely been kind of like in every challenge there's always an opportunity.
Yeah.
Right, and I think is your gift is to be able to recognize it and then find a way to capitalize on it. We were talking about hiring, right? Because you have a company that helps people with hiring and recruiting, and
Absolutely.
I'm sure we'll talk about that. But you've probably hired more people than most people can ever imagine.
Probably.
You probably fired more people, but you did it in a way that, initially I know starting out, it was 100% commission.
Yes.
And I think to be able to build, large organizations, you had, offices all around the, country. And so like, what was that process? Like, how do you build an organization, a company around somebody just being 100% commission when some people can't even build a company when they're paying people?
Yeah, and you pay them $60,000 a year, and they don't show up on Tuesday because they didn't feel like it. And it's in a weird place right now. This pandemic's caused this whole thing where there's, 2 jobs for every person looking for a job. So then people are going, well, how do I get people? So part of it is always be looking. One of the key components of being a strong CEO or building a large organization or a good organization is always be looking for the next person, because there's more A players than you realize. But if you're only looking when you need to hire, you're going to miss them.
Wow.
So you got to maintain a flow of people so that you're hiring the right people.
Yeah.
In my career, I've been in business of recruiting, hire, training, salespeople, mentoring people. 31 years. I've personally done over 50,000 interviews.
Wow.
Now, because of that, when I see somebody that I'm about to interview, I probably know whether I'm going to hire them before they open their mouth.
Wow, yeah.
Just because, you think, not to compare myself to Jordan because that's ridiculous. But when he dribbles a ball, he feels it. He doesn't have to see it. He feels it.
Yeah.
He feels every detail of that ball because he's done it so many times. He doesn't think about it anymore.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing. So when you're hiring people don't want to hire the wrong person, but they hire the best person in the pool that they have to work from. And sometimes that best person's still the wrong person.
Yeah.
So get a bigger pool.
Yeah. I like that.
And sometimes people they don't realize, like, you got to, sometimes the answer is spend more money.
Yeah.
I had a client not long ago, a good friend of mine, and he's like, I'm, spending $600 a month. I'm not getting the people. And he said, well, spend $1,800. And he did 2 weeks later. He said, hey, that worked. I'm like, yeah. Because now you got a bigger pool to work from, and you're going to find people you like. And that's a key component, because every business is a recruiting business.
Yeah, it is.
Every single business. Yeah. If you own a pizza place, you better make sure the person answering that phone is good at answering the phone and taking an order, because that's the first person your customer talked to.
Yeah.
Person making the pizzas better be able to cook. If you recruited and hired a bad cook, you got bad pizzas. The person on the phone doesn't matter anymore, because nobody wants your pizza.
Yeah. Yeah, that's real. So let's continue that conversation, right? Because now we're talking about hiring. And I think one of the things a lot of people don't really talk about is firing people. Like, and that's the skill, because I don't know if you remember, we had a call center, and I fired somebody, and I don't know if you remember, he went ballistic in the office and almost wanted to fight me. Yeah,
absolutely.
And you were like, hey, come over here to my office. I got to show you how to do this, so people don't hate you.
That's not the right way.
Yeah, and I was like, I didn't know. I was like, listen, bro, you're gone.
Yeah.
We're not going to need your services anymore.
You're not good at this.
Yeah, and I was like, and he literally wanted to fight me, and I was like, I wasn't ready for that. So like, what's the psychology or process when it's like, all right, this is now how I have that firing conversation? What's your process?
Right. Well, first thing is, it shouldn't be a surprise. There's got to be warnings. You got to let them know, hey, this isn't acceptable. You got to let them know that they're being told what they can and can't do, because they deserve that.
Yeah.
Got to know when they're doing something wrong. They got to know when they're doing something right.
Yeah.
You got to make sure you document it, keep tabs in it. And then no matter if you do all that right, you still have to treat them a certain way. Because people who do a bad job, especially if they do it bad enough, you have to actually fire them.
Yeah.
They're not like coming in, I quit because apparently I'm not good at this.
Yeah.
Something's going on. It's either permanent, temporary, or personal, or something, but something's going on. There's a reason they're doing a bad enough job that you're like, you gotta go.
Yeah.
But how you say it and empathy really matters. So it's not telling me you did a bad job. It's like, hey, it's not working out.
Yeah.
It's almost like getting rid of a girl. It's not you, it's me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's me. It's all me. I feel bad about that, but it's me.
Yeah.
So, and I always make sure, I try to make them feel as good about themselves as possible. I will give you a reference. I will support you in any way I can. There's a big world out there. This isn't the end for you. This is a new beginning. And invariably, you have certain people who want to fight for their job. And God bless them. If they had fought for their job and doing their job, then we wouldn't be here.
This is true.
So I've coined a phrase. I'm sorry, the decision's already been made. Now, I've only ever had to say that 3 times.
Yeah.
And the one person who I had to go 3 times, they said, oh, well, if it's been made, okay. And they left. Now, I'm the one who made the decision. And I could have changed my mind, but I won't.
Yeah.
Because I have in the past. When I was early on in business in the first years, there's times I had that person that's like, okay, I'll give you another chance. It's never worked out, always gets worse, always bad, always terrible, doesn't work. If you get to the point where you've made the decision, you have to get rid of that person, hold your line. Because if you go back, it's all bad.
Yeah.
And it might be, somebody might send you a message, hey, he's wrong, I did it once, and it worked. Okay, but it failed 99 times.
Yeah.
So the one victory's not worth the 99 failures. Yeah. So trust me when I tell you, when you made that decision, hold the line.
Yeah. Now this is interesting because, obviously now you've done both ways. The payroll route and then 100% commission. So you're even saying when somebody's 100% commission, you still got to let people go.
Absolutely. I started 100% commission. And that's what business is. All business is either 100% commission or I got to pay all these bills and then I get paid. So that's even harder.
Yeah.
If you've got a business doing $1 million a year, you might have $700,000 in bill.
Yeah.
Then you get to keep the 300, but if the $1 million becomes 700, you might not keep anything.
Yeah, that's true.
So it doesn't matter how a person gets paid. The fact of the matter is they're supposed to be providing a service, doing a certain job. And if that job is not being done properly, then somebody's suffering. Everybody else in the organization is suffering. So if there's 8 people in the company and somebody's doing customer service and they don't treat the customer properly, well, you're going to lose business, which means somebody has to go. That's not okay.
Yeah.
If that person's in charge of shipping, like say somebody's shipping your clothing line, if they don't ship it to the right person the right time when they're supposed to, well, they're hurting everybody in the business. And if everybody in the business gets hurt because of the one person who's not doing their job the right way, that's not fair to all the people doing it right.
Right.
What you have then is everybody takes a step down. Now nobody's doing that great a job. And eventually the business goes out of business and everybody's unemployed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So typically, when you see a problem, if you address the problem, they'll either improve or self-select, or you get to a point where you have to ask them to leave. Just do it politely.
Yeah, I like that. And it's also like a part of like, having those difficult or like critical conversations, which that's kind of tough sometimes too, which is, it's a weird dynamic. But I remember you had me read the book, Crucial Conversations, Tips for Talking When the Stakes Are High, right? Because it's like, these can be tough situations. And also what we were just talking about is like, if somebody's not even performing in that environment, they don't feel good about themselves. Like nobody likes to suck, but like, what are some things you found? Because, sometimes those are those critical, tough conversations that have to be had. How, is there anything that helps you address those conversations straight on, or like, okay, this is my mindset going to those tough conversations? Because a lot of people run away from those.
They avoid them like the plague because it's really difficult. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I just put it in the middle. I said, hey, we're about to have an uncomfortable conversation.
Okay. I like that. Yeah.
What do they say? It's like, okay, now they're ready.
Yeah.
All right. And then you explain. They know. It's not like where people run into trouble is the only conversation they've ever had a person is when they're about to have a critical conversation. They've had no other discussion with them ever.
Yeah.
They maybe work for them and they sit there and they say hi on the way in and they never actually talk to them. So if you don't know your people, then the critical conversation is very difficult.
Yeah.
But if you know them, you can have a difficult conversation and it's not as bad. In some ways, it's a little worse because you actually have an emotional connection.
Yeah.
But if you're true to your heart and who you are and who they are, and you value them as a human, then you can have a really good conversation.
Yeah.
And if your intent, if your intent is to help that person, then it'll come across the right way. If your intent is to be the boss, it's probably going to come along the wrong way.
Yeah.
Because you aren't listening to me.
Yeah.
And and finger pointing and down. That's always the good one. Finger pointing down. Always good.
Yeah.
Just stand over them.
Yeah.
That's great. We love that stuff. Nobody likes that.
Yeah.
0 people like that. So don't do that. And really understand where the person's coming from. And you're there to help.
Yeah.
That's our position as people who either employ people, lead people, are in charge of people's employment life.
Yeah.
Your job is to help them.
Yeah. I like that. So, at some point, obviously you crossed over and you started doing extremely well financially, right? And so you go from this place of not having a lot to actually having a surplus. But then with that comes opportunities.
Absolutely.
Right? And it's like, every day it's like there's something to invest into, something to do. 2-part question. Well, probably 3 parts when I think about it. Best investment you ever made, worst investment you ever made, and how do you now go about deciding what you're going to take on, what you're going to invest into?
Okay. Best investment I ever made is in myself. Is learning, growing, becoming better at what I do, who I am, etc. Whether that's a time investment or a finance investment, my wife and I probably spend $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year on development.
Wow. Even
because
at this
it's
point?
important. Yeah. Well, you stop improving, you stop.
Yeah. How long have you been an entrepreneur, by the way? Just throw this out.
31 years.
And you're still investing $50,000, $60,000.
Absolutely, no question. I mean, I've been to Tony Robbins events. Listen, there's all kinds of them.
Yeah.
And they're all good. You'll get something out of it.
Yeah.
Over time, you get less and less and less. It becomes more and more important.
Yeah.
But it's still important. Worst investment ever, I executive produced a movie.
Okay.
My wife and I talked for 15 minutes. We wrote a check for $500,000 and locked every penny.
Every penny.
When none came back. But we hired Bill Murray. That's what the money was for, to hire Bill Murray for the movie.
Yeah.
So I can legitimately say I hired Bill Murray.
Wow.
Well, legitimately, I slid over a little bit. It was our money that did it. So I think
Was the movie good?
Get Low, yeah, it was great.
Okay.
It had great, Sissy Spacek was in it. I mean, it had some great characters in it. It didn't have a lot of money behind it, is all. But it was a great movie.
Yeah.
I loved the experience, but we didn't make any money. So from an investment perspective, not a good investment.
Yeah. Okay.
And then what do I do now? I'm super careful.
Yeah.
I move slow. And I make sure I understand the industry.
Okay.
So before I just thought, well, people are doing this, so I'll go do this.
Right.
But they understand this. I understand that. So I just do that.
Yeah.
And I try to focus on what I have at least in a semblance of understanding of. I also look at things differently. I never used to do macro and micro in evaluating situations. So, for example, I used to own a lot of real estate. Well, everybody makes money in real estate, right?
Yeah.
No. People, whatever anybody can make money doing, people can lose money doing it. And I've done that.
Yeah.
Well, I had a lot of real estate in 2008. Bad time to have a lot of real estate. So I learned that doesn't work for me. So I make sure I align macro and micro. So now I've been focused on recruiting for quite some time. Well, helping companies hire right now versus what do companies need right now? Well, they need help hiring.
Yeah.
So the micro, meaning what I'm doing, the macro, what's the country or the world need, are both aligned.
Yeah.
That's when things work out.
That's good. That's good. We talking about firing. Any tips? Because I know you said you can almost tell now. You know, if it's somebody that's got a shot. Anything you look for initially in the conversation with somebody when you are hiring?
Absolutely. First thing I do is I go out and shake their hand. Said, how are things going today? And unless they say something positive, I won't hire them. If the first thing out of their mouth is, oh, traffic was terrible, I don't hire that person. I don't care what they look like. I don't care how tall they are. I don't care if they're a perfect fit. I don't care if their resume says they came from Harvard. I don't care.
Yeah.
The first thing out of their mouth was complaining. That's it. That's the first thing I look for. And the rest is how do they show up? You know, if people show up with their family for an interview, that's not going to work. Just because you just showed me, like you show, they bring a friend, that's not going to work. Like they got to be able to walk in the room for an interview by themselves.
Wow, I like that.
How they dress matters. They don't have to be wearing the perfect suit, but they got to show they put in some effort to how they got dressed. You know, and it's wherever it depends the job. Like if it's a construction job, they should be clean.
Yeah.
You know, it just there's variables.
Sure.
But the first thing I ask is I want to check their attitude.
I like that.
Because their attitude's going to determine what they do in the big scheme of things.
Wow. Yeah, that's an intangible. I mean, it's intangible, but something you don't even think about. Like that first
You've got to
question.
listen for it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. There's a lot of really skilled people who don't do a thing. And there's a lot of people who have no skills who figure it out.
Yeah.
I'd rather work with a person with very few skills who can figure it out than the person who's skilled and comes to me all the time and goes, yeah, I don't do that, or I don't know how to do that.
Right.
I don't want to hear I don't know how to do that, and I don't want to hear it's not my job.
Yeah.
I want to hear I don't know how to do it yet.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Exactly. That's one of the rules they have in the Navy. If you bring a problem to a superior officer, you also have to have a recommendation for a solution. Get me wrong, but you got to take a shot.
Yeah, I love that. That's pretty solid. Favorite comedian of all time?
Dude, that's hard. Super hard. So I was checking into a hotel, Days Inn. So it was a long time ago. I don't really love the Days Inn. No disrespect to Days Inn. But I'm checking in a hotel, and Chris Rock was playing in the lobby. I'd never heard of Chris Rock before.
Yeah.
And it was his original one, Bring the Pain.
Yeah.
So I'm listening half it out of my ear. And I'm like, what is this guy's? This is funny.
Yeah.
So I run up to the room, and this is pre-streaming and all this other stuff. So I caught the end of it, which was great. So when I get home, I go buy the DVD. For those of you who don't know what DVD is, it's a little disc that you put in and watch a show.
Yeah.
You could pause it. It was pretty cool. And I wore that DVD out. And I watched it so many times that I couldn't watch it anymore. So I invite people over to watch it with me.
Yeah.
Because then they're laughing for the first time, and I get to laugh with them again.
Yeah.
So he's the one I've seen the most.
Okay.
But before him, it would have been Eddie Murphy.
Okay. Yeah,
Because,
classic.
well, Delirious was just ridiculous. Nobody could do that.
Yeah. No. Yeah. He was a beast at it. He was.
Nobody could do that.
Yeah.
It was just new, and that's why it's had such a career and everything else. But so those are two that step out the most.
Yeah. I like Kevin Hart. He's definitely my favorite. And then probably within the last 2 years, Dave Chappelle has really grown on me.
So I've seen Dave Chappelle live, and it's funny. I was working out at the Four Seasons in Atlanta, and he was there, and it was pre. Dave Chappelle took a step back, and it was pre Dave Chappelle worked out, and so he was working out, but it was like working up and out. He was walking around with 4 liters of water and going from thing to thing and not really doing anything. And then we went to a show that night, and it wasn't that good. He didn't say things that were funny. He said, well, isn't that interesting? This is interesting. It's not funny, but it's interesting. I was like, well, I came here for funny.
Yeah.
So I didn't love the show, but I like Dave Chappelle. His show was great.
Yeah.
And then I watched him when the Netflix where he did that special, and all these people were mad at him and they're cutting him and quitting him and all that stuff. So I'm like, sat down and said, well, I want to see what this is about. That's the best Chappelle show I ever seen.
Yeah.
He has really come back, and he's always been funny. He's been good at writing, acting, etc. And he comes at things from a very unique angle.
He's got a great storytelling ability.
Yeah, so good. But that show was as good as I've ever seen him, and I think he left to evolve as a person.
Yeah.
So even though he was incredibly, think about how successful he was, very successful.
Yeah.
And then he left and he came back better.
Yeah, he did.
And I think that's because he had to go get right with him.
Yeah.
That's my guess. I can't put words in his mouth, but I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
Because he didn't feel good about who he was.
Yeah.
And he came in, looks great, and he's doing better than ever, and people quit him, and he didn't care.
Yeah.
So that's good. I think that's the way you should be.
Yeah. I have a question, right? Like leadership question is, so as you're building a team, you've got to care about people and you've got to build those relationships with them. I think that's one of the things that's really important. People know that you care, obviously, then they care about you and everything you got going on a lot more. Is there a fine line between like, all right, I do want to get to know you, I do want to build a relationship, but like, I don't know, like sometimes maybe you get too close and then there's a loss of respect or, you know, I don't know. What's your philosophy on like, okay, we're working together, let's build a relationship, but like how far do you take it? How far do you not take it? What's your thoughts?
Depends kind of relationship.
True.
So if I'm working with somebody, I'm trying to mentor them, guide them, and help them in business, then we can have a personal relationship too. But you can't have a relationship that isn't upfront, isn't real, and is hypocritical.
Yeah.
So you and I can't talk together about how we operate, how to do things ethically, and so on and so forth, and then I take you out and we rob a bank.
Right.
Then that's not going to work. Or you talk about, you know, being in the right mindset, getting your life together, and then I go get high.
Yeah.
Like there's certain things there has to be synergy.
Yeah.
So what you say has to be backed by what you do. There's a saying, I don't think I came up with it, but I use it a lot. Your actions speak so loudly I can't hear what you're saying.
I like that. Yeah.
So where people get into trouble is they want to hang out, party, make that relationship, but it's not a real relationship.
Yeah.
It's a hanging out for beers relationship.
Yeah.
And I don't mind going out with somebody for some drinks or something, but the core of it has to be more than that.
Sure. Yeah. Because you can always be thinking like you're building a relationship, but inside they may be losing respect for you. Like this guy's, he's out of here. And I've seen that people they get drunk or they do too much, and I'm like, or they start drinking or smoking or something, and they get into it with somebody. I'm like, bro, you've done the opposite of what you were trying to build up.
Doing shots or who knows, whatever. You're not walking the walk.
Yeah.
You're not doing what you say you're going to do and needs to happen.
Yeah.
And people pick up on that. Now, stupid people don't, and that's the problem. They'll stick around forever.
Yeah.
But smart people pick up on that, and you're like, this is not the right move for me.
Yeah.
And they got to feel comfortable. And they should feel comfortable.
Sure.
And they should all come together as a complete package. So it's not like there has to be a separation of church and state or anything like that. I have people I work with to my home. I go to people's homes. Like, I think that's the way it needs to be. It's a real relationship.
It should be. Yeah.
But it's mutual respect.
Yeah.
And that's the way it needs to work. And it's just treating people properly.
Yeah. You told me this. You was like, Justin, and obviously it didn't necessarily apply to me, but it did, right? I still hold on to it, and I teach it to people now. But you said, don't stick your pen in company ink, right? And it's like, you know, like if you have a company or whatever, you probably shouldn't get intimate or somebody like with somebody that works for you or something. Like, where did that philosophy come from? You've seen it go wrong, right? What's?
It mostly goes wrong.
Yeah.
Almost always goes wrong. And because somebody evolves, somebody doesn't, somebody's feelings are hurt, somebody takes the money or whatever.
Yeah.
And it happens.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
You know, and my wife and I worked together for years.
Yeah.
But we were in kind of different groups, so it wasn't closely. But it still created friction for us. Now, we're the anomaly. We both excelled. I know one other couple who did the same thing. Every other couple I've seen has imploded.
Wow.
Like,
what do you feel like? I mean, if I hate to say what's the secret, right? But like, what have you seen something that helps that to work?
Well, only two of us, so I just think it's an anomaly. The reality is, and I say this to people all the time, because they're like, I'm going to go open up a company, my wife's going to be my partner, or she's going to do this, and I'm going to do this. I'm like, well, if you love her, I love my wife, but do you want to be side by side 24/7?
Yeah.
And also from a simply pragmatic point of view, if you're opening a new company per se, and you're running it, don't you want a separate income that's not affected by that to help hedge your bets? Because you might have a dip, Well, she might have revenue that helps you survive the dip and then you thrive later. Or vice versa. If she's opening the company, maybe you need to be over there.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah, you got to focus, but if you're new and you're just getting started, you want that revenue protected.
Yeah.
Because new revenue is new revenue. When you're a startup, you have to consider every expense and honor every bit of revenue. And do the best you can to do both.
Yeah. That's actually
There's
really
people
good.
who make it work, but it's just rare. And it does happen, but it's rare. And it depends the kind of business. It's high stress, high level. And if the significant other who's with the person who's opening the company or running the company, they got to be able to handle somebody being in charge.
Yeah.
And that can't be both.
Yeah.
Not at the same time. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Because I know we do have like people that watch, they're in business together with their spouse or, but how do you cut it off, right? Like, how do I say, if we have a problem at the office, we have a problem at work, now we're home. Is there a conversation you say, okay, we leaving this at the house, or like, what do you?
Well, you don't want to have a conversation while it's hot.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's the type of thing. So my wife and I, here's a discussion we had. We were working together. And I was in a leadership role. She was in a leadership role, not quite as high, but still both pretty high. And she would come to me with a thing. So as in business, when she came to me with a problem, she wanted a solution.
Yeah.
As her husband, which came to me with a problem, she wanted me to shut up and listen. So when we were not in the middle of something, we sat down and had a discussion. So look, when you have a problem, we want us to discuss it. You got to tell me if you want your husband or the person in business.
That's
and then
good.
I'll operate accordingly. So after that, I'd say, look, I want my husband. I said, all right. I'd just shut up and I'd listen.
Yeah.
And then if she wanted a solution, we'd talk about it and come up with a good solution. But we had to come up with an agreement, not while it was happening.
That's good.
Because that's not the time to come up with an agreement.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. Relationships in business, how important are they to you?
Imperative.
Yeah.
I believe, so in our previous businesses that we've been in, they always said, this is a people helping people business.
Yeah.
It's the dumbest thing I ever heard.
Yeah.
All business is people helping people.
Yeah.
If somebody you're doing business with doesn't have any intent on helping you, why would you do business with them?
Yeah.
I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
Like, I don't expect people to ask us to recruit for them unless they believe we will do what we can to help their business.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. If you own a pizza shop, you better know the guy who delivers the boxes.
Yeah.
Because when it's Super Bowl Sunday and you have no boxes, you ain't selling any pizzas. What you can do, walk around with your hands? You're done.
Yeah.
So you got to make sure you know your drivers, because if they don't show up, you also have a bad day. Like, all these things that occur happen because relationships exist because people work for each other.
Yeah.
There's 3 levels of dependence in the world that most people never get to level 3. Some people never get to level 2. The first level everybody gets, dependence.
Yeah.
We've all been there, 100%. No human can go by that because you are birthed, you can't even eat.
Yeah.
You need help.
Yeah.
We all strive for independence. Get away from your parents. Live on your own. Pay your own rent. Pay your own way. Get away. Don't move home.
Yep.
Right? And I fought for independence. But success lives in interdependence. When 2, 3, or 4 people, success is dependent upon each other. Then you can really accomplish something because you can multiply your efforts.
Yeah.
If it's just you, you can't excel. When you've got a group of people working together, you can do anything.
I like that. That's really good because it's like I was talking to somebody recently, and they were talking about they wanted to go in partnership with someone because they wanted. It was like, oh, everybody they can do a little bit, and I can do a little bit. I was like, my thoughts is like, look, you need to get a lot of people together, a couple people together, and everybody's going 100%, and everybody's going hard. And it's kind of like what you're saying is because now it's like it becomes this thing where it has to work, and everybody's mindset, energy, and effort is on making that thing work.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it doesn't work because some people, get into business and entrepreneurship with the wrong mentality. Which brings me to my next question. I have a lot of people that are like, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I don't like sales. What do you say to that person?
Good luck. The reality is, in business, if you run a business, you're selling.
Yeah.
And some level. Now, it doesn't mean you're necessarily knocking on doors or cold calling or whatever, but you're doing business development, you're creating new partnerships. You have to sit down with people and sell that you are a worthy partner on some level. So you got to be able to sell yourself, and also you can't build a team unless they believe in you too. Well, that's all sales is people believing in you.
Yeah.
Now, here's the reason people say they don't like sales. They don't like being told no, and their version of a person doing sales is a person who's convincing somebody or shady about what they're doing. That's truly a horrible salesperson.
Yeah.
There's an old saying. They're so good at sales they could sell ice to an Eskimo.
Yeah.
That's a horrible salesperson. I love firing those people. I still do it politely, but I love firing those people because they're no good. They're a bad human.
Yeah.
And if people like you, the whole idea is just simply providing a service. Provide the solution that somebody's looking for, and just give them that.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, let them know you don't have that. Maybe you know somebody who does.
Yeah.
Refer them to that person because you don't have it. Don't make what you have work. Find out what they need and see if you have what they need.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like sales, we've done the door-to-door, we've done the over-the-phone. I mean,
phone, in-person, internet, everything.
There's so many skills that come from that. I think, in a sense, that is like for me, that was kind of like my college for entrepreneurship because it's like door-to-door sales. It's like somebody just slams the door in your face. Okay, that didn't go well. So you get instant feedback.
Absolutely.
It's like social media, like you post something, you see what people say, but like
Right.
door to door on the phone is like it's instant. Like, okay, that was a bad opener. Let me try that again.
I'm not going to say that again.
And then you start getting better, and I think that's a lot that's necessary for the other conversation that you end up having. Whether it comes to firing people, when it comes to like leading with people, it's like you learn how to make those adjustments from those one-to-one, conversations with selling. So I think it's huge. It always bothers me when people say like I don't want to sell, but I want to run a business. I'm like, but that is what it is. Like, you have to sell, you have to drive revenue, and if you don't, those businesses aren't going to last long.
No, and if you're the sort of introvert that just does not work well with people, get a partner.
Yeah.
Find somebody who wants to just talk to people full time.
Yeah.
And like we were talking about some friends of mine, they just don't. They can't be embarrassed. That's a great salesperson.
Yeah.
Because they can still have, ethics and morality and all that stuff, but they just don't get embarrassed.
Yeah.
So have them go.
Yeah. I like that. And I think you do like sales, especially when you start getting the results of sales.
Everybody likes results. That's like saying, I don't like working out, but you have a six-pack and
Yeah.
you look great.
Yeah.
Well, clearly you've figured out that you do like working out.
No.
You don't like working out, you like the results.
Yeah.
So what you do is fall in love with the results, and if you want to be successful, decide you need to be successful. Because if you want something, you may or may not get it. But if you need something, you'll find a way to get it because you have to have it. You need it. If you want to buy a new computer and it's $1,400, you may or may not come up with $1,400 over the next 12 weeks.
Yeah.
But if you need to pay rent and you're $700 short and you got 3 days, you find a way to get $700 because you need it.
Fast, yeah.
And there's a difference. You act differently, you operate differently. I have on my mirror right now, I have the word need and it's circled.
I like that.
And I do that because I have to remind myself I still have to need. Or I can go back to want and chill,
Right.
but then I'm not going to create anything new.
Yeah.
And I want to create new because I got kids staring at me, but also that's what's fun.
Yeah.
Creating something that didn't exist a year ago, 5 years ago, 6 months ago.
Yeah.
It inspires the soul.
It's like having that hunger, that drive to still be willing to go hunt.
You got to stoke your own fire.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How do you do that when because at this point you've done extremely well. You and your wife have built great businesses, but like there was a boxer, he told me one time, he said, Justin, it's something called a $250,000 a year curse. He said, here's what happens. When you make $250,000, there's almost nothing you can't buy. He's like, for the most part, you can do, you can go on a trip, you can do the stuff you want to do. And he said, what you have to do is when he said, when the refrigerator is full, you have to ground like it's empty, right? Otherwise, you can end up going back to what it is that you came from. Like, now that you've been doing it for multiple decades, what drives you at this point? Like, what was like, all right, let's be hungry again, but you're not.
I still have the habit of accomplishment. I still want to do things.
Yeah.
And, I've been fortunate. I won't say I'm lucky because I worked hard to get it, so I just say fortunate.
Yeah.
But, I'm getting up to get at it, and I've done well.
Yeah.
But like some of these Musk guys and stuff, these guys were $100+ billion, 200, whatever.
Yeah.
They're doing it too, so who am I to stop?
Yeah.
Like, to get to a billion's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's $1,000 million.
Yeah.
So you could spend $1 million a year for 1,000 years. You're going to be dead long before that happens.
Yeah.
But you could. That's a lot of money. To be worth $100 billion.
Yeah.
But you still get up and you still bust your butt. Because I don't work for me. I work for the people who work for me.
Yeah.
And they deserve for me to accomplish more than just me having a company. They have to get something out of it. I truly believe there's no point in building a business unless the people who build that business with you get something from it.
I like it.
Otherwise, why bother? And I think most people who run companies think that way too.
Yeah.
I want to believe
they
that
should,
anyway.
yeah.
I think they should. And there's anomalies where there's just really selfish people who've excelled and don't care about anybody. But I think that's rare.
Yeah.
I think most of us want to help the people who help the business grow to get something from it, to share in the windfall, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah. And also remembering that your first customers, the people that work for you.
Yeah.
You know, they're the representation of it. I literally just asked this on a webinar I did the other day, and I said, think about the companies that care the most, because I was talking about leadership, and I was like, that's a big principle. It's like, you have to care. And it was like all the companies that people were naming were some of the top companies in the world. And I was like, isn't it ironic that the companies that care the most a lot of times are the ones that win the biggest? Like Apple, I love them because I don't have to argue with them about anything. No. It's like, hey, this broke? Okay, we're sorry.
We'll fix it.
Chick-fil-A, we don't argue. No. You know, it's just, but there's some companies that's like their brand has been attached to that, you know, not being a great place. I'm like, man, where are they going to be in the next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years?
Completely.
Unless they switch up caring for people like you.
100%. Well, it's a reputation. I believe what the Richard Branson philosophy is, make your people so good that they can leave and treat them so well they don't.
Yeah.
Because that's no different than any relationship.
Yeah.
You know, I don't brother, cousin, friend, significant other, girlfriend, boy, whatever.
Yeah.
You got to treat them properly.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be treated properly.
Yeah, that's true. Money you got to treat right too.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, it'll leave you as well. You know.
Quick.
Very, very quick. What is one of your we say relationships are really important. Is there anything you've done consistently since you've been in business to intentionally develop relationships?
I've got good at understanding. Empathy and understanding other people and where they're coming from. And I'll tell you what really allowed me to leap forward in that is when my son was born. I never understood this whole time with the newborn and whatnot. I didn't get it because I never had one.
Yeah.
I remember one of the guys who worked for me, he's like, my wife's pregnant. Okay, great, congratulations, whatever. And then, birth, he calls me and says, okay, baby's born. I'm out for the next week. I'm like, well, you're not the doctor. What do you need to? Baby's born. You're good now, right? Let's get to work.
Yeah. You didn't have the baby.
No.
Right.
And you're not a doctor, so she's at the hospital. She should be good then, right? And then I had the baby. I'm like, well, we're pretty quick back to work, but that's because it's me. But now I'm like, I get it. You want to spend time with your newborn.
Yeah.
Because you're blown away. So me becoming a parent made me become a better leader. Because I look at everybody as someone's child now.
Yeah.
And I love meeting people's parents because it shows you so much of where they came from.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I definitely think having London definitely helped, for sure. And there's stuff that you just haven't, like even me, like before I was married, I didn't understand the whole. You know, you'd be telling people, "Oh, it's simple. Just sit down, read a Bible scripture. You got it, right?" And then you get married, you're like, okay, well that didn't quite work the way I thought it would work. And then now being divorced and going through that whole process is a whole different thing. It's like I've learned to not judge people because it's like so many things can happen. And it's kind of like what you were saying. It's like it's that empathy of like, all right, it's not my situation, but I can see it. And that's something I've had to really develop. And it's like, and I'm still not even great at it. I don't even think, but I'm life is teaching me to embrace it. I was at an event and Michelle Williams, she was doing a training on mental health. And I'll be transparent. For me, for a long time, I thought it was just like just think positive.
Yeah.
You're thinking negative. You got to think positive. And then I realized it's like really a thing.
Yeah.
And people really struggle with it, and sometimes they don't. And I was taken back from that because she asked how many people struggle with it. And it was like, literally, I looked around the room. There's probably like 2,000 people in the room. I promise you, at least 1,600 people had their hands up.
So it's funny you say that because I was talking to my wife about this, and my wife excels in how she is and what she does and everything else. We were talking about something, just some experience. I was like, well, everybody knows how to do that. She looked at me, she goes, no, they don't. You don't realize what you're talking about. And I forget what it was specifically. It's probably something around recruiting where it's like, no, they don't. Like, some people don't know how to write an ad for a job board or don't know how to do a proper interview or whatever, simple things.
Yeah.
It's simple because I've done it 50,000 times.
Yeah.
But if you've never done it, or if you've done it twice, or you've done it 10 times and it did bad every time, or you're afraid to do it at all, so you've never done it, then people aren't good at it. And you're so focused and energized and good at who you are and able to shove yourself from here to here that you don't realize other people can't. But it's interesting how life is such your teacher, like all of us, that you've learned that, but you learn by watching it.
Yeah.
So this is one of the key components to all things in life, learning by watching. Nobody sat you down and explained it to you. You noticed. Some people look in the room and go, oh, there's 1,600 idiots in this room. They just can't go negative to positive.
Right.
Morons.
Yeah.
I'm going to go hang out with that 400.
Yeah.
They're my people.
Yeah.
But instead you realize, wait a second, a lot of people don't get this. That's a real thing.
Yeah.
So that's you realizing things. Some people never realize those things.
Yeah.
And they never learn by watching. Instead, somebody has to sit them down and shove it down their throat and they still don't get it.
Yeah. I always tell people that a lot of times success is caught and not taught. Right? You got to pay attention to it because a lot of times people think it's like, oh, I could just sit in the classroom and learn, like you said, empathy. And it's like something I'm still working on. Yeah. But it's like I'm realizing, because sometimes people are just like, you don't understand. But I'm like, I do understand. I really do. But they're like, no, you don't get it. So when you say empathy, is like, what is that and how did you work on it?
Empathy is understanding other people's pain, struggle, and pain and struggle.
Yeah.
There is nothing more powerful than struggling and going through pain in life. And I grew up in a emotionally battered home. I didn't know that because it's the only house I ever grew up in. So you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't realize, wow, this is a show.
Yeah.
You just think this is the home life.
Yeah.
Like I literally used to say to people, they're like, oh, I'm going home for the weekend and spend it with my family. I'm like, I'm sorry. It's like a punishment.
Yeah.
It's terrible. The whole weekend? Sorry.
Yeah.
And I thought that was normal. I thought everyone wanted to get away from their family. It wasn't until I got out in the world and got around and moved and traveled and lived, and I'm like, wait a second. That's not right.
Right.
You don't treat people that way.
You know, we've all been told that your network equals your net worth. And in all my years in entrepreneurship, I've never seen anybody really teach it. You know, a lot of times people look at me and they'll look at my circle of friends, they look at my circle of mentors, they look at the people that I'm around. They're like, man, how did you go about building that network? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's a skill set that has to be developed. And I literally put something together to teach you how to be able to make the climb as an entrepreneur, as a leader, or someone that's just trying to grow in their influence. Somebody wants to grow their community, their leadership, their income, their mindset, or their brand. Check the link in the description so you can get access to that course and start learning the skills necessary today. How do I attract the people, grab the influence, and grow my brand, scale my personality so I can get the results that I want? All of that's there. Click the link in the description for more details and get access to it today. I really like that. Every entrepreneur, I feel like, has a season of greatness, and then you're gonna have like seasons that aren't so great, you know, a little tougher. What was like your toughest season? Because a lot of times people talk about success all the time, but like nobody talks about like the season that was tough and how they got through it. What was that for you, if you don't mind sharing it?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Because you're right. Everyone always talks about, oh, it was great. And
Yeah.
it's like people talking about their career in high school football. Like, oh, you didn't talk about it all the time. You dropped the ball.
Yeah, absolutely.
So years ago, so I was running an organization. We were probably doing $2-3 million a year coupon sales. Buy one, get one free offers. We sold them door to door, and everybody was straight commission. So I was recruiting people to sell straight commission in Atlanta, and the Olympics were coming to Atlanta in '96. Well, people were excited about the Olympics in '96, and I already done well. I was the #1 office in North America out of about 100, 110.
Yeah.
I got down to Atlanta, and within 7 months, we were the #1 office in North America again. So, you know, start right back where we were going, open up a couple locations. We were starting to expand. Then I started noticing, as I'm interviewing people, everybody said, well, so what, oh, you're from Idaho, where'd you move from? Wherever. Why'd you move? The Olympics. Like, you know, that's not for 18 months, right?
Yeah.
But people were so, I don't know why, the Atlanta Olympics, people were so excited to be here for it that they just started coming in from everywhere. And they immediately got jobs.
Yeah.
My buddy PJ's brother got a job at the Olympics, and he moved here to work for the Olympics for 3 weeks. That's it. So unemployment went down to below 2%. I would be interviewing people and like nobody I could hire. And by the way, their options were to go work for the Olympics because the Olympics still need more people. So I'm recruiting against the Olympics.
Yeah.
So I went from being the top to 60th and breaking even, and it was terrible, and I couldn't afford to go home at Christmas time. So it was Christmas going into 96. I was probably 30th or 40th out of 100. And I got really mad at myself because I started saying stuff, well, I'll try, which that's bad. I remember my wife going through bad words with my son, and try is one of them. He said, that's not, can't. It's another bad word. It's a 4-letter word.
Yeah.
So I got mad at myself, not the situation. Now keep in mind, in the organization I was within, when I got to Atlanta, there were 12 or 14 locations. I was the last one. Everybody else either moved away or went out of business. So I got mad, really mad. So I invited all the people in the company in for the first day back. We closed down between Christmas and New Year's. And I sat down and I apologized to them. I let them know that I was weak, and that I'd been weak, and that I let them be weak. And it was unacceptable. It was unacceptable for me because I let them do less than they could be. And we weren't going to do this anymore. And I let them know. I figured out the average interview that went out in the field to look at what we do cost $250. So everybody know, when you take out an interview, you're taking out $250. So if you can hire them, please hire them.
Yeah.
Because you just spent $250 otherwise.
Yeah.
And they weren't generating $250 a day for me.
Yeah.
So we changed our attitude. I got my head back where it needed to be. By the end of January, out of that 110, we were in the top 10. By the Olympics showed up, we opened up an office.
Wow.
8 weeks after the Olympics, we had 45 people selling. And we were the #1 office in North America. And we were the #1 office every month until the last month I ran an office, except for 3. And that was years.
Yeah.
We dominated. Because what I learned during that downtime, by being kicked so hard, especially after I'd done so well, rookie manager of the year, manager of the year, you're nobody. What happened? That's not fun. Because I was somebody before, but now I'm nobody. Nobody's listening to me. I'm not being invited to speak. I'm not getting a phone call from a soul.
Yeah.
I'm just not important anymore. That hurt.
Yeah.
I also realized the people I was quote unquote important to, I wasn't.
Yeah.
Because I was important when I was doing well, but when I wasn't making my ton of money, I was less important.
Yeah.
That means I'm not important.
Yeah, that's true.
My performance is important, and it's also important to me. And that taught me more. That period of time made me more millions of dollars than anything else I've ever done since.
Wow. I like that. Yeah, a lot of times it's that moment of like, you got to look within yourself. It's like, yo, got to figure this out.
Yeah, and it's okay to be angry as long as you're angry at yourself.
Yeah.
Don't blame other people. That's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
And it goes fast and it's steep. And you can blame your parents and your childhood, and certainly all the things within your childhood form things, but it's not a reason to blame it for where you are in life.
Yeah.
You're only where you are up until what you've done till today. It's not a sentence.
Yeah.
Keep moving.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite sayings. If you feel like you're in hell, keep moving.
Yeah.
Why would you stop?
Why would you stop? Yeah, it's too hot. It's too hot.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I love it. One of my last questions I'll ask you, because, again, it's because you just talked about it, the wins, the lessons in business. How is there any philosophy with money as you're getting it? Like, you know what? Because I know for me, first time I started making some money, I went out and bought all the stuff I could never afford. Like I had to have the rooms, and I needed to have everything that everybody said no to, or I had to go put on layaway and stuff like that. And then, you start making money, you think it's gonna last forever, and then you realize it doesn't, and it's like, okay, wait a minute, things have changed, and you go through this little, like roller coaster, almost sometimes financially, until you kind of develop some skills. Anything you've learned, it didn't have like to be an exact science, but when it comes to like money management and cash flow as you're building businesses.
Yeah, and honestly, I did the same thing too. I had sports cars and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you have kids how some of that changes around, because like, wait a second, I have to at least get this child set up so they have a shot.
Yeah.
So I got to calm down. But I mean, I've looked at a lot of things financially. I have spend no money January, so I try to spend as little as money, no extras in January at all.
I like that.
Because that resets me financially for the year.
Yeah.
Steve Harvey actually did a thing. I don't know if you ever watched any of his reels or anything.
Some of them, yeah.
Really good. But he said in a married couple, you should have 4 accounts. And I think I'd go 5. But it's like one's for all the bills, one each that you can just spend, do whatever you want, and one's for savings. But I would go one further. I would do one is for acquiring opportunity money, and then one's for savings. So once money goes into savings, it never comes out. It stays there forever. Opportunity money only goes to opportunities. So if it's an opportunity, investment, something, that goes for opportunities. And then play around money, and then pay the bill money. Pay the bill money, that's the first one. Everything else is overflow, right?
Yeah, it is.
But that's where you got to start. And I've learned this philosophically now. We live a relatively calm lifestyle for our income.
For sure.
So we get a lot of overflow. So I don't have to dictate it every detail all the way down the line. But we make sure we stay well within our means.
Yeah.
When we do things to our house, we don't bring in a new loan, we pay for it.
Yeah.
Because that way we're not increasing debt, which is, home debt's the best debt, but it's still debt.
Yeah.
So you don't want to increase it. One of the things I've seen people do over the years, and it breaks my heart when they use basically the equity in their house like a credit card machine.
Yeah.
That's just bad.
Yeah.
Now, we stopped paying off our house. We were on track. Like, we set up a plan to pay it off within 10 years. And then we refied, and we're paying like 2.8%.
Yeah.
Like, well, wait a second. I can throw that in the market and make 6 times that. Stop paying off the house.
Yeah.
Put it over there. Because you got to make adjustments. But you got to look at it and do what makes sense.
Yeah.
And don't do what makes sense. Like, you did the rims, I did the sports car. We all do stuff.
Yeah.
A little bit of stuff's good. Because if you do no stuff, that's like eating right and exercising and no cheat day.
Yeah.
You forget what chocolate tastes like. Well, that's a terrible experience.
Yeah.
So it's okay to do some stuff, but don't make your goals that you wanted to reach when you were broke make you broke again.
Wow, that's a bar.
The other thing is, beware of the monthly recurring charge. Now, when you're selling stuff, monthly recurring revenue is
good.
awesome.
Yeah.
When you're buying stuff, monthly recurring charge, which is the opposite, you're paying for internet, you're selling internet.
Yeah.
Which means I'm getting paid month after month. That's good.
Yeah.
But the monthly recurring charge means I'm paying a bill month over month. That's bad. And people don't read all the way through it. Like, they buy a car. Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Car note. Now there's insurance, there's maintenance, there's gas. So you could afford a $60,000 car. So you bought a $60,000 car. You didn't realize the insurance would be $350 a month.
Right.
Well, then you got to repair the car, so now it's out of warranty, and that just costs you $4,000 a year.
Yeah.
And then, well, the tires are a little more expensive on this nice car, so it's another $2,000 a year.
Yep.
And then, oh, wait a second, it only takes premium, and now gas is $5.50 a gallon or whatever. So your $60,000 a year car was actually a $35,000 a year car when you add in all of the stuff. You got to look at everything involved in it,
Got it.
and we don't because we want that car.
Yeah.
God, we want that car.
Yeah.
Dreamed of that car. Well, if you're just getting started, if you're in year 2, year 3, year 4, and you don't have the car yet, it's okay.
Yeah.
You don't need the car yet. Wait a little longer, you get a better car.
Yeah.
And as I was, many times as I'm building businesses, I'm not the one making the most money. My people are.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that's the right move.
Yeah.
I got to make sure they're okay. So oftentimes, I don't even have the newest car. Hell, in my family right now, my 16-year-old's got the newest car. My wife's car and my car are older than his. But we want him to have a safe car.
Yeah.
I know my car's safe because I've had it for years.
Yeah.
And they're terrible to the car.
Yeah.
Kids are bad for cars. They're disrespectful.
Very.
So I don't need that good a car right now.
Yeah.
And also, I had, years ago, in 2004, I had a SL55 little Mercedes, hot little car, 497 horsepower. I think it was 493. Flew, hardtop convertible, sweet car.
Yep.
I'm driving it, and the wheels are squeaking, the brakes are squeaking. So I take it in, dealerships, you check it out for me. Come back like a half hour later, said, Mr. Park? I said, yes. He goes, the problem with your car is you don't drive it. There's rust on the brakes.
Oh, wow.
Like, oh. All right. So sometimes you don't drive it. Like, I only drive 8,000 miles a year now.
Yeah.
So I'm less worried about the car. But I had to get the car. That was then. It's 18 years later. I don't need the car.
Yeah.
But the cash is good.
Yeah. That's true.
And you can do things with cash.
Yeah.
And I still like a nice car. What's your favorite car? If you could have any car in the world right now.
You know, I'm so split on this now. I think I like the Ferrari now.
They're beautiful.
It's just, you know, after I got my first car that I really wanted, I realized it was like, it's cool, you know, but it's like, it's a car. You know, it's like,
Exactly.
It's there are moments where it's like, okay, that was cool to pull up and, you know, you got the recognition and all that kind of stuff. But then it's like, man, you know, I was just telling somebody recently, I was like, man, I don't even know if I wanted another car, I don't know what it would be, you know, just maybe just something to switch it up. But yeah, I think a Ferrari is really, really nice. I really like those now.
They're beautiful. Yeah. My only problem with and there's times when I've been looking, I'm like, you know what, I could do it. And then I look at it, I'm like, this Ferrari's 8 years old and has, you know, 12,000 miles on it. There's a reason, right?
Yeah.
There's got to be a reason.
Yeah.
Like success leaves clues. So does the guy's not driving the Ferrari. There's got to be a reason. Yeah. So that's why I've never pulled the trigger on those.
Yeah. Yeah. And the insides are kind of like basic. You know, that's the other thing.
Yeah, that's
like, man, it's a lot
classic look and all that stuff.
I'm like, no, I need a little TV screen or something. You know, something's got to be in there. But yeah, I like that. You know, another car actually I just was looking at was the Lucid. I don't know if you saw that, the electric car.
Yeah.
So I put myself on the waiting list. I don't know if I'm gonna get it or not when it comes, but
I am thinking about an electric truck.
Yeah.
Just because, especially they're talking about the range being 400 or 500 miles. I had a Tesla for 3 years, and the range was 260, which wasn't bad. That was enough.
Yeah.
But if they had a 400 or 500 mile range, I'd never be low.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
I like trunk space.
Yeah, I love it.
I miss trucks and trunk space.
I like it. Where there's a lot of people here obviously gonna be listening, find you, and you know there's a lot of great stuff that you put out. Where can people find you? Where can they find out about your business? Exactly everything you guys do.
Well, we're on Facebook, and probably Instagram. I don't do it myself. My email is brad@ApplicantStarter.com.
Okay, perfect.
So
and the business itself, you help people do what?
We allow people to outsource all their recruiting. So all our clients do is interview. That's it. We place the ads, source the people, qualify the people, book the appointments, set the reminders, provide the software to determine how they get there. We send them directions. We do everything. All the client does is interview. That's it.
Man, I remember when I used to interview. That was like all the other stuff you just talked about. That was 90% of the work.
It's a lot of work.
You know, it's a lot of work.
But when you focus on it and that's all you do, then and all they do is interview, we do all that for them because our people are really good at it. Yeah. This is all they do.
I like that. That's pretty solid. So listen, y'all want to get some recruiting? You got to help grow your team? You know, check out ApplicantStarter. Really, really dope. And Brad has a wealth of knowledge. I think a lot of times it's not just about finding a company that's good at something. It's like you're also getting a piece of somebody's mind that really understands it and that's done a lot of stuff. So I appreciate you coming in. I actually got something for you. If we can
no way.
grab. You know, it's not anything crazy, but anytime somebody comes on the show,
crazy's fine. I like crazy.
Anytime somebody comes on the show, we want to give them something. So this is for you and the missus.
Oh, thank you.
You know, you guys can sip on that a little later, and you know, there's something to go with it. But just at least a token of appreciation.
Thank you so much.
And you know,
appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah, no, and just sharing the wisdom. And I appreciate even just continue to maintain a relationship. You know, I think that's important because it's kind of what you said. Like a lot of people just have relationships based on production. I call it commissionships. It's like
exactly.
We're cool. My buddy Cameron, he actually said he would say, man, some people are only cool if you're making them commission and you're making them money. I'm like, man, that's a sad life. You know, if I'm only cool with you, because you know, people should grow and they should, you know, continue to develop. And if you're only going to be with somebody as long as they make you money, you're not going to have a lot of relationships. So
not real ones.
Yeah.
And it's a sad life.
Yeah.
To your point, like it's just it means you're going into every new relationship knowing it's temporary.
Yeah.
Or the person you're developing a relationship, they figure out it's temporary because you got no buddies.
You know, I always look at that. I'm always cautious of people when you start talking to them that they don't have anybody that is around them for years. I'm like, that's always like a red flag for me because I'm like, nobody? Nobody likes you from a decade ago.
Yeah, you don't know anybody from history. Yeah. No, I agree, and I get worried about that, and also I feel bad for people who everybody in their life is on the payroll. You know, I took the family to see Elvis Presley movie, and the poor guy only made it 42. He's still the #1 recording artist in history for a single singer. Wow. He's still #1. He's been dead for 35, 40 years.
I didn't even know that.
I did not. I watched the movie.
Yeah.
But everybody in his life was on the payroll. Like he would tell his father to go do what you do and all that kind of stuff. And Michael Jackson, same thing. Everybody was on the payroll. So, you know, you start having pet monkeys and Disneyland in your backyard and doing all this crazy stuff. Well, if we did that, we have people in our lives who would call us up going, "What are you doing?
Right. Chill out.
You're being a bit of a fool."
Yeah.
And that's important. It's important to me. I think it's important to all of us because you need people in your life who are real to call you out. And you can't have that if you aren't a real human.
Yeah.
You got to be real to your tribe.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's big. I appreciate you, Brad.
My pleasure.
Yes, enjoyed it.
Always.
You know,
Thank you.
I always learn from you. So we got a couple bars in here, so we'll put it on the gram here soon. So I appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
All right, listen, guys, we're here to Run the Play show. We'll give you guys top plays, leadership, business, relationships, all the stuff, plus a little fun. But y'all just got some plays today. Now go run it. What's going on? Listen, make sure you guys go to runtheplaystore.com. Get your official Run the Play gear. We talk about shirts, socks, jackets for everybody that's Run the Play all across the world.
We're gonna run the play. Let's go. Do you know what it's like to come from nothing at all? But every day you just wanting it all.